Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, your home for Pittsburgh Penguins news and analysis. You can find us on YouTube at Tip of the Ice-Burgh. You can find full episodes at Nick Belsky, or you can catch us anywhere you get your podcast from. I'm your host, Nick Belsky, joined by the returning hero, Nick Horwat. And fortunately, the Penguins made sure that we had plenty to discuss upon Horwat's return to the podcast. I don't think there's anywhere else to start than the blown leads, because it's not only the main story, it's the only story at this point with the Penguins on the ice. Obviously, we'll talk about the Tristan Jarry trade. We weren't able to get a breaking news edition out, but we will address that a little bit later in the show and kind of the fallout from it at this point, a couple days later. But I mean, the blown leads, they're sinking the Penguins at this point, just dropping, almost free falling through the standings as much as you can when you're still picking up a point in every one of these games.
Yeah, it was a topic we discussed a long time ago already, and the idea of you can't count by one right now.
No.
You got to get those second points. You have to capitalize on opportunities that are being given to you in those overtime situations. The issue now is they're giving themselves opportunities by being up by 2, 3, 4 goals and not closing the game out. We'll get into some quotes and some other things about what could be happening here. I mean, we're not coaches or players. I'm sure we're not going to have any definitive answers for anyone listening, but we can give our thoughts and opinions on just what the heck is happening here, because it's a minefield of just what exactly is going on here. We see them starting off really well. We're seeing key names and key players play good games, and it just all falls apart come the final 20.
Yeah, I mean, numbers can tell the story. I'm going to give you some numbers here, but if you watch those games, you already know the story. But if you didn't watch them, let us paint a picture for you. The third period has been a massive issue for the Penguins. They've been outscored 13-8 this month alone in the final frame. Do you want to venture a guess what their third period is the last two games on Saturday and Sunday this weekend at PPG Paints Arena?
Oh, it's something to 0. I forget the exact number. It's
No,
0, right?
No, we have two. The Penguins have scored twice.
It hasn't felt like it.
I know.
Oh, they did just do the one in Utah, yeah.
They won one in each game, but they've been outscored 8-2 in the last two games in the third period. Here's some more numbers for you, just to continue painting this picture for the Penguins. If games were 58 minutes long, regulation was just 58 minutes long, the Penguins would be 5-1-1 in the month of December. And we would be sitting here saying, oh, it's a happy holidays. I mean, Hanukkah's right around the corner. How could you not be happy? They'd be 5-1-1 if regulation was 58 minutes. They'd be tied for third in the Metropolitan Division, and they'd be 2 points back of first place in the entire Metro. Instead of being 5-1-1 in December, they are 2-1-3, and in a three-way tie for wild card one.
I mean, there's many different directions that this conversation can and probably will go.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing 2-1-3 is so baffling, considering the high flying skill, considering how good they look through, heck, the first 58 minutes in these games, apparently. Not even just the first 40 or the first 20. Apparently, it's those last couple minutes of just, could be taking the foot off the gas, could be a mindset thing, could be, we're seeing a lot in with the Steelers this year, just no adjustments while other teams are adjusting. It could be any number of things that, again, we're not sure of, but something is clearly collapsing within the Penguins in these late stages, that it is just leaving them so many points on the table. One of the directions I do want to take this conversation in at some point, I won't do it now, but down the road a little bit, is, hey, man, this team's not supposed to be good anyway. But again, we can get into that later.
I mean, we can get into that right now.
Cool.
I think that we've passed that, because we've seen this team play at a high level, and we saw it consistently. They were 8-2-2 over 12 games in the first month of the season. And even this month, they're 2-1-3, but they're playing really good hockey games. I mean, you look at what they were doing to the Sharks on Saturday, 5-1 at one point in the third period. That's playing really well against a team that's a lot better this season.
Mhm.
They were controlling a good bit of the game against Utah. Yes, Utah was getting most of the shot attempts. I think at one point it said like 73-28 were the shot attempts, but Sergei Murashov was on his game. The team was finding some offensive zone time at the same time. But at the end of the day, they just are falling flat. They're playing good teams too.
Mhm.
I'll give you that. So I don't think that we can use the excuse, hey, this team, the expectations coming into the season weren't high anyway, because they changed those expectations with their October. And even when they're losing in the ways that they're losing, they're playing, like you mentioned, sometimes 58 minutes of really good hockey. Look at the Dallas game. That was 58 minutes of really good hockey, a 2-1 lead. Jarry was standing on his head, and it just came down to 6-on-5 when, as Hunter Hodes, who was on last week, put it, you're going up against 6 guys that are going to be playing in Milan in about 2 months. And it just happens that way. And then the overtime, that's a different story that I'm just tired of talking about.
Yeah.
But I think that, and you might have a different opinion of this. I think that we have seen enough out of this team to be past the, well, they weren't supposed to be good anyway excuse.
I think my thought of it is they weren't there yet. I think they were definitely getting there, getting to the point of, okay, maybe we can start talking about this team as a playoff contender. I don't know how far into the season I wanted to put off that conversation because of how low the expectations were to start with.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in my head I wanted to maybe kick it to New Year's. But they had that great October. They kind of kept a good trend in November, and now we're seeing December kind of the wheels spin a bit. I don't want to say fall off yet, but they're starting to spin a bit. And I think in my head it is they never reached that point of convincing me totally, because if you look at the East, it's still a very, very close race, top to bottom.
Like I said, 3-way tie for the wild card positions.
Yeah, the teams that are in last in the division are still right there. It's not like they are, down and out. There are some separations starting to happen within the standings, but it's all still very tight. So I think mentally, for me at least, they're not quite at that point of exceeding expectations. They're not at that point of talking about playoff contention yet. They had definitely exceeded expectations early. So now whenever I see these, it's brutal collapses. I'll give it that. When you have leads and you blow them, that's tough. Regardless of expectations, you cannot do that. But I think at the end of the day, on paper, and again, this is just an on paper thought that I'm having now of just they weren't supposed to be good. I'm not going to get totally bent out of shape over the points and over the losses. However, again, like I said, in reality and looking at it through this reality lens of you had leads and you're blowing them, that's tough. Because again, those are key points that could get me over the edge of this is a playoff contender.
Yeah.
And that's where it all kind of tracks up and down. I just like having that little piece of the conversation of they weren't supposed to be good anyway.
Yeah.
But now we see where they are.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong here on your thought process. They hadn't earned your trust yet this season.
Not quite. Yeah.
Okay.
But they were certainly getting there. Like I said, through that October, through a November, and then putting up good games. And then, playing very well against Tampa Bay in that game as well. That they're 1 or 2 wins this month. They're playing good games. They're playing good hockey. There's no doubt about it. It's just closing it out. It's like watching a very good baseball team that just doesn't have a bullpen.
Yeah.
That's a very good description of this right now.
Yeah. A lot of this conversation has been kind of overarching. Where is your trust level based on what you've seen the entire season? But I think no matter where you come from, if you're somebody that kind of aligns with Horwat here, which is, they hadn't gained my trust yet because my expectations were low coming in the season, or if there's somebody or you're somebody that aligns with where I was at, which was, hey, listen, they had a great October. It was a rough November. Injuries were a factor. But then in December, I mean, they start with a 2-0-1 road trip, even though they had the final minute collapse against Dallas. They had that game against Tampa where they won, despite the fact that they did give up the tying goal. They just got lucky and it was a hand pass. But they also had a performance in Philly that was very impressive in a hard building to win in this season. And I was thinking, okay, they've earned the trust back, that they're looking more so like the team we saw in October. But I think we can all agree where we're at here through 4 games of a 5-game homestand, there's no trust at all that this team, no matter the lead, no matter how far ahead they are, there's no trust that they're going to be able to hold on to it. I mean, it feels like this team right now, for lack of a better term, is broken. And here's what Erik Karlsson had to say. This is courtesy of Michelle Crecchiolo at Pens Inside Scoop on Twitter, or you can find her work at penguins.com. She reported this being the quote from Erik Karlsson after the game on Sunday. Quote, "It's more of a mindset right now. The good thing about that is it's controllable. I don't think it has anything to do with systems or X's and O's. It's within ourselves. We've got to find a way to regain that trust individually and as a team." And if you go to her page at Pens Inside Scoop, there's a story there as well that you can read more post-game reactions from the Penguins. I urge you to go do that. But I mean, hearing that quote, and of course, as a kind of cherry on top to the games and performances we watched this weekend, it just feels like this team is lost and in desperate need of a wake-up call. But I'm not sure what that could be. As we'll get to, we saw a huge trade on Friday already, and they came out and they looked great on Saturday right after that as a response. But again, since then, it's been the same exact thing. Dan Muse said on Sunday after the game, boy, I can't believe that we're sitting here 24 hours later having this same conversation. Like he was shell shocked. So it feels like this team, again, like I said a couple minutes ago, for lack of a better term, is broken. How do you pick up the pieces at this point?
That's such a tough answer, because genuinely it is. You're right. There's definitely something that feels broken about it.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a mindset thing, okay, well, what's the mindset that needs to be fixed? Where are those pieces that need to be fixed? If it's an X's and O's thing that's possible, then those are a bit more glaring to fix. And maybe there are some instances of, hey, certain players shouldn't be in certain situations. Maybe that's part of the fix. I think one of them being Erik Karlsson himself being on the ice for trying to play defense late in the game, or Kris Letang trying to play. Yeah, it was overtime. I can't say much about Letang in overtime. You have to have your offensive guys out there,
but
don't get walked like that.
Well, yeah, don't get walked like that. And you could say the same thing in the third period of the Ducks game. I mean, Erik Karlsson and Kris Letang are out there again in the last 17 seconds on the power play. My question is not why do you put those guys out there, their offensive defense. My question is, why are you changing your defense pairs in the last seconds of a game? I mean, again, there's questionable calls. This falls on everybody. Sergei Murashov had a forgettable third period and certainly overtime on Sunday. Before him was Arturs Silovs, but the defense in front wasn't good. Sidney Crosby in overtime in both games, questionable decisions. His decision-making in overtime all year has been questionable. But that, again, it's not one individual player. But I think that's one thing that a lot of people are highlighting. I'm glad you mentioned it, is the Karlsson Letang of it all. I'm not sure why you're taking a guy like Parker Wotherspoon off the ice in that situation. I understand you're on a power play, but this guy has proven to be your best defensive defenseman this year. And so I would be more comfortable personally with Wotherspoon Karlsson, because you mentioned Karlsson. It's not like he hasn't played good defense at points this season. He's played more of it this year than I think the previous 2 years combined. But it's just the switching of things, like switching things up in the last second, that makes me scratch my head. Again, there's probably a reason behind it that is something we're not privy to, but it's kind of acting outside of yourself and outside of what got you to that point in the game and in the season that has me a little bit confused.
Yeah, it's also, this is another addition to it. It's okay to play conservative hockey sometimes, especially when you are ahead late in the game. It's okay just to carry the puck in your own end. You're just kind of hauling it around, not taking any shots, not creating any offense, but that's because you're being protective. You're not trying to play defense at the moment. You're literally just trying to run the clock out. You're kneeling the ball, essentially. How many different sports references can I get in this? You're just trying
at least 2 more. Do you have a cricket or maybe a highlight in there somewhere?
Highlight is a good one. I'll see if I can do a cricket one in a bit. But you're just trying to kneel it. You're just trying to run the clock out, and you're out there lining up for the Hail Mary, essentially. It's obscene schematics that you just don't need to line yourself up like that. Like you said, Parker Waterman would have been a much better option than, let's say, one of the two.
Yeah.
If when it comes to that situation, if you're ahead in the game and you're under a minute left, don't put your power play unit out, but just throw your first line over the board. So you're still maybe trying to get the insurance goal, but it's also going to be paired with a couple of defensemen. You're not necessarily looking for your four forwards and defensemen, or your 3 forwards and 2 offensive defensemen. You're just kneel the ball. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
and you weren't doing that.
And even that, like, you're like, oh, it's a power play, but okay, but your power play doesn't have 2 defensemen on it. Like,
yeah,
there's no, like, it is so far beyond the scope of what we've seen so far this season. That's why I think and we saw it in back-to-back games, and I was just like, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
What's the plan? But at the end of the day, I think one thing I've seen that I think is ridiculous is people saying somebody needs to get fired.
No,
it's not going to happen. We are 30 games into this coaching staff. Somebody is not getting fired over a 5-game drought. One that in particular, 4 of the games you went to overtime in.
Correct. It's not like these are total Fs of hockey games, mind you. Like, let's be real here. They're not great grades, but you're not totally getting Fs and calling for heads because you're playing good hockey. It's just now a matter of fixing this one last piece.
Yes.
And also just Pittsburgh. Listen, Pittsburgh has been wanting people fired in all these teams for so many years.
Yes.
So maybe it's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction of just a force of habit of going, fire people. Calm it a bit.
Yeah.
This whole coaching staff is barely half a year into this.
Yeah.
It's not even that it's going to take time, but it's okay to still work out a couple of kinks here and there. Again, like I said, they're not F grades here. They're just trying to lock out this last chapter.
Yeah. And I think something needs to happen to wake this team up.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's, it's tough. It could be anything that they need. But Dan Muse needs to push the right button right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it might be something as drastic as benching a big name. I mean, that certainly sends a message, but I mean, it's not going to be Crosby. So do you look at benching Kris Letang? You just added a Brett Kulak. Do you look at sitting Letang down and saying, listen, like, this is example number 1. Do you do that with Carlson? Or, I mean, that's less likely to happen. You don't see that in hockey very often. Do you waive Arturs Silovs and say, listen, we just traded for him, and yet if you don't perform, you're going to get put on waivers? And again, it's not based on what we saw Saturday, because it's not all on him. It's a whole team effort to blow this many massive multi-goal leads in the final period. But I mean, it is a larger sample size with Silovs, which makes that make a little bit more sense. 1-3-4 since November 1st and an .863 save percentage. That's just not cutting it. Yeah. Especially, I mean, Murashov did not have a good day on Sunday, specifically in the final period. But at the same time, you have more faith that Murashov is going to be able to go out there and turn in a good performance at the moment than you do with Arturs Silovs. And you risk losing him to waivers, but I think that's why that's an attention-grabbing move. That should grab the attention of your locker room. Like, hey, we'll lose this guy for nothing because something needs to change. I mean, maybe it's a players-only meeting. That happens more so in other sports as well than it does in hockey. But what I'm saying is, I don't know the correct answer, but something needs to happen to wake this team up. I mean, Erik Karlsson said it's a mindset thing. We'll shift the mindset. It's on that, to me, lays squarely on the shoulders of the coaching staff, of course, but also your star players. That lays on Sidney Crosby's shoulders. If it is a mindset thing, then that is on your leadership group on the bench and on the ice. So everybody with a letter better get together and figure out how they're going to respond to this, because they have to win these games. It's not going to get any easier. The rest of December is still very busy against very good teams. You need to come away with wins, and it starts on Tuesday, potentially, likely, against a guy that had carried you to a playoff position through 2 months of the season in Tristan Jarry.
And Connor McDavid. It's quite a test. And when it comes to wake-up calls, and this can bleed into the Jarry conversation in a little bit too. I don't think a trade is necessarily a wake-up call move at the moment. Especially considering the Jarry one didn't feel like a wake-up call at all. That one
No, that was a
truthfully felt like years in the making.
yeah,
Like,
yes.
like I said, that's part of what we'll get into in a bit. But no trade, I feel like, will be a wake-up call for this right now. Because who's been committing tradable offenses? Waiving offenses, like you said, when the goalie's sick, for sure. But who like it's the way that these games are 58 minutes of decent to good hockey, and then it falls apart. And someone just has a bad shift. A couple guys have a bad shift. It was just a bad time to have a bad shift. How many of them are tradable offenses? Benching offenses? Maybe. Absolutely. Like you said, sit Karlsson down for a game or two. Sit Letang down for a game or two. See what you have in Kulak whenever he breaks through immigration. Get the ball rolling on involving some of these other names at the behest of guys like Letang or Karlsson, or if you have to go forward wise, that's a little tougher. But Kevin Hayes has already sat out quite a bit. You're not going to put Brian Rust down. You're not going to. Rickard Rakell is literally coming back. So maybe you focus on the defense with that.
I mean, again, maybe it's not even an option. Maybe that's not something that you can just do. I mean, it doesn't happen much in the sport of hockey, and it's certainly not going to happen, or it's not likely to happen when you have guys at the stature and the stage of their career of 58, 65, and 87. So, I mean, that might not even be a feasible. I just threw it out there as like, what could it be? Like, this is the stuff that you have to start thinking of. Like, how do you get the attention of this locker room to say, hey, games are 60 minutes, not 58, not 59, not 59 minutes, 59 seconds, and 0.59 of a final second. It is 60 complete minutes. And if you don't want to play the full 60, then you can go play in Wilkes-Barre, because they are a great team that probably could do with a little extra help every once in a while. Like, I'm sure they'd be happy to have, somebody else joining their team. But if you want to play in the NHL, you need to play the full 60. And they just haven't been doing it. So something needs to happen to wake them up. I don't know what it is. I'm looking forward to seeing which lever Dan Muse chooses to pull in this situation. Now, you mentioned the Jarry trade. Now, let's get to that one, because I feel like we've gone very long, and I'm sure we will be able to go even longer on the blown leads and just the overall state of the Penguins here in the middle of December. But there was a trade on Friday, one trade that you mentioned felt like it was years in the making. Friday morning, we saw Tristan Jarry and Sam Poulin. Speaking of feeling like it had been a long time while we've had these conversations, Sam Poulin heads to Edmonton. In return, the Penguins get goaltender Stuart Skinner, left shot defenseman Brett Kulak, and a 2029 second round pick. So my question for you here is, obviously the trade has happened. We can talk about it kind of player by player if you'd like, but I think the big name here is Tristan Jarry, who is in his fifth season as the Penguins starting netminder, and probably his third or fourth season as being a player that has found himself in trade rumors. Now they finally pulled the trigger. Was this the right time?
Yeah, I think so, because in the long run, when we look back on things, we will probably say the Penguins didn't really want to re-sign him in the first place. So you could say the chapters were kind of supposed to end there. But with Kyle Dubas coming in, him seeing no other option at the time, didn't have much choice but to sign him to that deal. He had to stick around for a little bit longer, and so the new chapters were written. And at any point from then to now would have been "quote unquote" the right time to move on from Tristan Jarry. So I think so. You got an incredible value out of it, considering Stuart Skinner is, I believe, younger. I heard younger, cheaper.
He's 27.
Yeah, younger, cheaper, and on an expiring deal. You weren't going to get much out of Sam Poulin anymore. It hurts to say. I hope he goes off and does really great things in Edmonton. And then same thing with Brett Kulak, final year of his contract. and you got a second-round pick in there. And there was no salary retention. Kyle pulled off a great move, first and foremost. So, yes, when you objectively, I think, win the trade, that's a properly timed move as well. The tough part of trying to get it fully properly timed is the Penguins' current goalie situation, which, as we just discussed quite a bit, is fine, is doing okay. But man, can guys like Arturs close out a game? How ready is Sergei Miroshov, if at all, for the NHL? When's Joel Blomqvist get another shot? What's next after those three? Stuart Skinner. Boy, that's an enigma. Who, again, it's fine to have an enigma for this year. And now this, I can also kind of reach back a little bit further and go into that this team wasn't supposed to be all that good this year anyway. Let's give Stuart Skinner a try. I don't mind it. Overall, I think it was a great trade, though.
Yeah, you got really good value if you're Kyle Dubas. And I think that, I agree. This wasn't, you mentioned earlier, this wasn't a get your attention or get the attention of the locker room trade.
No.
This wasn't anything other than, hey, the value's in an all-time high, and if we don't take advantage of it now, we might not get an opportunity to take advantage of it later. I think what Kyle Dubas saw in this is, one, the ability to get another defensive defenseman for a defense that is severely in need of better defensemen. Just no matter what, just collect as many as possible because they need it, and collect options as well because they need it, especially on the left side there, and clearing the board a little bit for next offseason.
Yep.
Right? He already has a complete massive stockpile of draft picks. He has another really good first 3-round pick, a second-round pick in 2029, which helps to build that equity for the future. But also, you mentioned it, expiring deal for Skinner, expiring deal for Kulak, and wipes out the entirety of Tristan Jarry's $5+ million for the next 2 years. So he's cleaning the slate to be able to say, hey, the rest of the season, show me where you're at if you're in the organization. And if not, I'm going to have a lot of money to go out and get whatever toys I want next summer. So if you don't step up, don't worry. I have the cash to go get something in free agency because I have all the cash. And I have all the draft picks as well if I want to go in on the trade market. So I think this is just him saying, listen, we're in year 3 of a 5-year deal for Jarry. He's performing really well. He is one of, if not the biggest reasons that our team is in the position they're in, which is far above the expectations that were laid upon us in early October. But are we going to be confident that he can continue this for the next 2.5 years versus the 2 years we saw where it got to the point where he was sent down to the minors 2 years ago? So it makes sense in that aspect. I was still completely shocked. I mean, I said on Thursday's episode of the Tip of the Iceberg, and I said to clip it, so I'm sure somebody will, and send it to Old Takes Exposed. I said I would be shocked if the Penguins traded Tristan Jarry before December 31st. Well, unfortunately, 24 hours later, I was proven wrong. Wow. So I didn't expect them to pull the trigger on this. I really didn't. I didn't think that they were in a position, especially with Arturs Silovs playing the way that he had, to go out and trade away the goaltender that had them in a playoff spot whenever they are constantly telling us the importance of getting Sidney Crosby back in the playoffs. It's not getting there at all costs, but they really want to get Crosby and Malkin and Letang back in the playoffs. And you trade away your starting goaltender that's been standing on his head and playing at an all-star level. That's why I was shocked. But I will agree. He got good value and probably better value than he would have gotten if he would have waited. Because if he would have waited, Edmonton would have gone elsewhere. And then who knows what you're looking at as far as trade destinations and trade partners. Edmonton, it all came together as the perfect storm. Edmonton was as needy as possible. Jarry was playing the best that he'd played in 3 years. And it just ended up matching up. And I think that's what this trade came down to.
The Penguins said we need to strike while the iron is hot. The Oilers said we've gone to the Cup final 2 straight years. Calvin Pickard was a huge reason for it last year. Stuart Skinner was not, for most of it at least, or for part of it at least. Both teams kind of needed that change in between the pipes, and both players needed changes of scenery. I had been banging the drum of Jarry to Edmonton for years now.
Well,
so when I saw Edmonton as the as the other team, I looked into my mirror ball and said, "What do I have left in here?" Not
Powerball
much.
numbers,
Yeah,
maybe? Are those back there somewhere? I don't know.
I mean, for a long time, Jarry to Edmonton has made sense. The stories of him with the Oil Kings winning the Memorial Cup out there, having success out there, and being from the area, it all made sense right away.
Mhm.
It just took a little bit longer than maybe I would have expected. But again, he's hot right now. Everyone's in need. It was the perfect time to do it. Um, Anytime after that contract getting signed would have been the perfect time to do it. It just happened to peak right about now. Jarry's
Yeah.
at a good point. I don't know what Skinner's been doing this year, but again, he's joining a rotation, so it
Yeah.
doesn't matter that much.
Yeah. Stu Skinner's had a rough start to the season, but his last 5 has been pretty good, if I recall correctly. I think he's 3-1 or 4-1 in his last 5, and he has a plus 905 save percentage, which again, much better than what it had been. So you get him gaining a little bit of confidence. But the one thing I'll say I really liked about Friday, when Kyle Dubas was addressing the media, the one thing that he said I'm paraphrasing here, is, listen, Stu's on a expiring deal. Arturs, similar situation. 2 young guys behind him. The future of the Penguins net is up for grabs.
Oh, yeah.
So there's an opportunity for all 4 of them, whoever's playing the best, to go out there and grab it. The problem is you need somebody to go out there and grab it. Stu Skinner has been struggling. Arturs Silovs, rough November, and it is carried into December. Murashov, I don't know if he has anything left to prove at the AHL level, but again, as you saw on Sunday, he's not unstoppable at the NHL level. He's 21 years old. He still needs to fine-tune some things. And Joel Blomqvist is in a similar situation. Young goaltender, not a lot of experience. Somebody needs to step up. If not, you're going to have some pretty disgruntled superstars. But again, that's a risk Kyle Dubas is willing to take, and that's where we have this. But the last thing I kind of want to mention about the trade, and it's a factor that I haven't seen as many people talk about, is you're bringing in 2 guys with recent playoff experience. How often do we talk about, well, I mean, you have the great experience in Pittsburgh. I mean, Crosby, 3-time Stanley Cup champion. Malkin, same thing. Letang, same thing. Carlson, he's had his battles in the postseason. He hasn't had a lot of success, but hey, he was in the game 7 of the 2017 Eastern Conference Final too.
He was on that Sharks team a couple years later in 2019.
In 2019?
Against
Yes.
Vegas.
Against Vegas, yes. So the difference is those guys haven't been in the playoffs for the past 3 years. And how often do we say, well, you don't want to get to the Buffalo Sabres side of things because losing is contagious. It permeates through a locker room. I'm not saying Sidney Crosby is a loser. I'm saying you bring in 2 guys who went to the Cup final the last 2 years. Things change in every sport. Maybe bringing that type of mentality and those types of leaders into your locker room helps remind guys like Crosby and Malkin, oh, this is the way it should be. Because it feels like, and this recent stretch is exhibit number A, it feels like this team has forgotten how to win, especially late in games. So maybe bringing in 2 guys that won a lot of hockey games the last 2 years, particularly in March, April, May, and sometimes into June. It feels like that's something that this team needs, and it feels like a bonus to the trade that we saw on Friday.
Yeah, I think Brett Kulak played pretty well for the Oilers, at least in the last playoffs. I know Skinner struggled a fair bit to kick off the playoffs for the Oilers last year, but found a way to bounce back at the right time and helped shove the Oilers back into the Cup final. Again, it was the final was a bit of a different story this past year than it was the year before, where, had the years been flipped or maybe had this trade happen the year before, we're talking about Stuart Skinner winning 3 straight games in the Stanley Cup finals, all 3 of them being must-win situations for the Oilers. Sure, he didn't get that 4th one. If I'm remembering the score correctly, it was like 2-1.
Yeah, game 7?
Yeah.
2 years ago? I think it was 2-1.
Yeah. You look at 2 goals given up against that Florida Panthers team, you go, well, that goalie must have done something decent enough. Just their offense couldn't click. This time around, I mean, this past time around, again, it was a bit of a different story in the Cup final, but Skinner did what he needed to do to get the team back there. And you're right, just bringing in 2 guys that have recency, playoff experience against just enormously good teams in teams like the Panthers. They know how to play against good hockey teams. They can bring a bit of that mojo, bring a bit of that vibe into this new room. And it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I do want to see Kulak get a shot on the ice with the Penguins. I kind of want to see Skinner get a bit of a try. I know he's going to join a rotation, so we'll see how it rolls from there. But I want to see what they can do before we really, really put a nail in their coffins as free agents.
Yeah. If I had to guess, I don't think Skinner gets into a rotation. I don't think the faith is there in Silovs. I think they traded for Skinner.
Yeah.
I think they're going to say, listen, we had Tristan Jarry was the starting goaltender before he was traded. He was the starter. And Arturs Silovs is whenever Tristan's tired or whenever we're playing a back-to-back, that's when you'll get an opportunity. I think they're going to do the same thing with Skinner because he was playing better right before he was traded. And because this is a fresh start and a new place for him, I think they're going to say, hey, we're going to give you a run here to see what we have in you in Pittsburgh. So I think that's what I expect out of Skinner. And I think you see both of them. I mean, it's going to be a heck of a game on Tuesday. I mean, that game is not going to lack for storylines. I think TNT just kind of lucked their way into maybe the biggest storyline game of the season so far. Tristan Jarry, who won his first start with Edmonton, by the way, in Toronto, which the Penguins haven't been able to kind of figure out the Maple Leafs. The Oilers did in front of Tristan Jarry. So it's Tristan Jarry's return to Pittsburgh. He essentially went on a weekend trip, and he's coming back to Pittsburgh. You have Skinner and Kulak, who I'd imagine end up getting their visa issues figured out and playing in that game. And you have Sidney Crosby 2 points away. Is it 2? 2 points away from tying, 3 points away from surpassing Mario Lemieux's all-time Penguins record. So that game doesn't lack for storylines. It should be a fun one. And one last little stats cleanup here for you is in the 2024 Stanley Cup Final. Game 4, Skinner gave up 1 goal. Game 5, he gave up 3, but they won 5-3. Game 6, he gave up 1 goal, and Game 7, he gave up 2 goals. So when he was called upon, he stood up in a big way. And I think that's something that the Penguins are going to be hoping to get out of him here for the remainder of the season. Really quickly, before we talk a little bit about what we expect the Penguins lineup to look like when it's fully healthy, if it ever gets to full health, of course, I do want to kind of bring some attention to the new second line because Evgeny Malkin has been out now a handful of games. And Saturday, the Penguins broke up the much-loved kid line and put Justin Brazeau next to Ben Kindel and Rutger McGroarty. Now, the big issue with the kid line is they were doing everything except finishing. Well, now that they've changed things up a little bit, that second line is giving up a lot more chances than they were before, but they're starting to finish. Rutger McGroarty has 1 goal, 1 assist in the last 2 games. Ben Kindel has 1 goal, 3 assists, including a 3-point night on Sunday, and Justin Brazeau tallied a 2-goal night, kind of looking more so like the guy we saw in the first dozen games and less like the guy we've seen since his return. So I look at that line and I'm thinking that's one of the best takeaways that you can have from this weekend where it feels like everything's negative. You can look at that second line and say, hey, they're pretty potent as a trio together.
Yeah, they're looking good. That's a trio that I wouldn't have fully expected to, or at least I should say Justin Brazeau with those two. It's not a trio that I would have fully expected to find a great deal of success. I think Justin Brazeau is just finding a niche in Pittsburgh with anyone, which is very good to see. We'll get to it when it is all said and done. I don't believe that should be a line that stays together, but I'm liking what I'm seeing so far from these three and from forcing a bit more change from the lineup, trying to bring the momentum from that line is key. I think Ben Kindle's, is he just proving he is an NHLer. Screw his age, screw whatever else. He is an NHL player. He doesn't need to be anywhere else right now except for on this Pittsburgh Penguins roster. Wherever it may be in the lineup, as long as he's on the ice at Pittsburgh, he's playing phenomenally well and earning every spot. And at this point, he's going to start, I think he's going to start earning a little leeway in terms of if he wants an off night every so often, just might be okay.
Yeah, I mean, look no further than the start of overtime on Sunday. Who took the opening faceoff? It wasn't Sidney Crosby. It was Ben Kindel. Now, he did turn the puck over, and if I'm not mistaken, that did end up turning into the possession that the Utah Mammoth ended up ending the game on. But you mentioned that this is a line that you don't think needs to stay together. I think this is a line that if they continue to do so, I'm not ready to crown them yet, but if they could continue to do what they've been doing and maybe play a little bit better defense, don't give up as many opportunities, it could have the Kessel effect, right?
Yeah.
You go back to 2016, the reason HBK was created is because Evgeny Malkin was out of the lineup. Then Hagelin, Bonino, and Kessel played so well together, they said, well, we'll find other line mates for Malkin, and they'll be fine because they're playing with Malkin, but Kessel needs to stay with Hagelin and Bonino because we're finding magic and we can spread the scoring out. If this line continues the way they have, I think that you could see a similar effect. The second line can do, what they need to do. Malkin can be with Anthony Mantha. That pairing's worked well. He can be with Tommy Novak. He's spoken glowingly about Tommy Novak since he came to Pittsburgh. So put those two together and then have your third line be a McGroarty, a Kindel, and a Brazeau who each have multiple points over the last couple of games. And if you can do that, then you're sitting in a pretty good spot. Now, I'm not ready to sit here and say, yeah, this is HBK reincarnated a decade later. It's probably not, but at the same time, if it's working, then let it run. I mean, we were talking about Kindel, McGroarty, and Koivunen and saying they're dominating other teams. They're getting the opportunities. They have the shot attempts way in their favor, but they're just not finishing. You add Brazeau, all of a sudden, each of them has lit the lamp at 5-on-5, something that Rutger hadn't done all season. Ben Kindel had majority of his points come on the power play, and Justin Brazeau hadn't scored since coming back from injury. Now, all three of them are finishing opportunities. So I think that's something that you look at and you say that is an overwhelming positive coming out of this weekend. Again, just need to shore up the defensive side of the ice a little bit, but that's not exclusive to them. That's the entire team.
Yeah, that's everyone. But shoring up defense is everywhere. I like the idea. If it does stay together, you have a built-in nickname, though. It's the Mick BK.
I'm sorry. Run that by me again?
The Mick BK, man. MC for McGroarty, K, or B for Brazeau, K for Kindel. There you go. You figured it out. You can make the logo be the McDonald's logo, like the start of the McDonald's logo with the Burger King. You could bunch it all together. We can get this cooking. Mm-hmm. Or if you wanted it, plus it's got the BK in it already. Thanks for the HBK part 2 thing. We're cooking something here. If that line wants to stay together, you're talking me into it though. I will say that outside of the nickname piece, you're talking me into keeping this trio together. If they work together, don't take them apart. Don't tear them apart. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Other pieces that may need fixed, you can adjust those as need be. I like the idea of when Malkin returns, putting him back with Mantha and Brazeau as like just that behemoth of a line. Mm-hmm. And just for the size and that they played really well together, you may have to sort of start forcing square pegs into round holes with the kids again. But, 1 or 2 goals trickle in for them, the confidence picks up, the momentum picks up. That becomes more of, Carlson's headspace thing, but that's very possible. Or maybe you shove one of those kids up to the first line with Crosby and give that line a change, because sometimes lines just run their course.
Talk about lines that are not good in their own zone. Yeah. That Crosby, Rust, Raquel line, rough couple of games since Raquel came back in the defensive zone.
Yeah, it might be time to give that one a break for a little bit and see if one of the kids can do well on the top line. I know they've experimented basically with all 3 of them up there. Mm-hmm. Maybe stick one there permanently, staple gun them for permanently, quote unquote.
Give them a go.
Give them a go. Yeah. Give it a run, and then I don't know which one you bump down to a second or third line in Rust or Raquel, but you got to give something a jump. And again, this could also still go back to the whole not closing games out. The team needs a jump. The team needs a wake-up call. Sometimes just bumping a key name down in the lineup does that too.
Yeah, it's hard to bump Brian Rust down. He has, what, 7 points in his last 2 games or something like that? Like, yeah, the defense isn't there, but damn, the offense is there for Brian
It
Rust. But,
is.
I mean, we're talking a little bit about lineups, so let's just jump into it. I mean, if the Penguins, God forbid, ever have a healthy lineup with the players currently under their roster control, what does it look like? I mean, top line, if right now you're constructing a team and there are no injuries, you just, give everybody energy and power and health boosts. What is your top line? Is it Crosby, Rust, Raquel right now? Or are you saying, hey, listen, for the time being, we're fully healthy. Let's put that line out there because over time they've proven that they can put it together better than any other line in the NHL almost. If they're on.
If they're on. I think for now, yes, I would keep it together. I know I just kind of said sometimes lines run their course. I think we still have one last gasp to go with this line before we really say it's run its course or it needs a change. Raquel is still getting back from an injury. He still kind of needs to he still just needs to get his feet under him a bit. So let's cut it just a touch of slack. It's got like one more game of slack. So I would say for the time being, those three are staying together. Also because it helps me paint the rest of my picture.
Yeah. So let me ask you really quickly before we get off the top line. You think this Lemieux chase is weighing on Crosby a little bit? Do you think that it's something that once he gets past it, all right, we're good and we can go now? Or do you think that's something that doesn't really enter his stratosphere?
That's tough to say because I don't know kind of how much he's been talking about it, how much he's been saying about it, how much he's been getting asked about it.
I think most people in Pittsburgh media, most of the guys and girls in that room know not to ask him about it until it happens.
Exactly. So that's kind of why part of me thinks maybe he's purposely not thinking of it, or B, just trying to get to it, get past it, and move on as quickly as possible. The way Ovechkin's goal chase last year was dragged out all year, but that's because we knew it was coming all year. He didn't slow down for it whatsoever. He knew it was in reach, and he put the pedal to the metal, got hurt, and then floored it. So I would say in Crosby's mind, it's kind of working as a power right through it. Don't worry about it. Answer the questions the one time after it happens, and we move on, and we explode. So I would say it's not affecting him really at all, especially because it's not getting brought up in his face every day.
All right, so you can you can definitely go off with your middle six, but I think I already gave mine away. I would go if the team's fully healthy with Mantha, Malkin, Novak, and McGroarty, Kindel, Brazeau. I like what I've seen out of that right now. Second would be third line, and I think that it's something that yes, I'd love to see just a kids line. It is fun, it is fast, it is electrifying, it is entertaining. But sometimes you need the steady force, and Brazeau has been the steady force, and it's helped them finish, and it's helped them light the lamp. So I'd want to see more of that if I was constructing this lineup right now. And I do think there's something to be said about the chemistry between Malkin and Novak. I mean, Novak has come on very strong in the month of December, and I think you put him with an Evgeny Malkin who's gotten the opportunity to kind of get off his legs a little bit and kind of take a back seat from the grind of an 82-game season. I think that's what I would go with. And Mantha and Malkin have worked well together. So I think that's what I would put as your second line, and I'd keep the current second line as my third line.
I'm gonna make the kid line be my third line. I'll jump to that and just put those three together. It almost the way that I said the Penguins first line will stay together, but not for too much longer. Same can go here. I feel like my lineup's going to end up being, this is what I would do temporarily. Well, it's proven to me.
Yeah, like today, if you had to build it, and then you can obviously, as Dan Muse does, let's see how this plays out for a couple games, and then
we'll so I think the kid line would stick as my third, and I just like that beef line. I like Malkin, Mantha, Brazeau. Those behemoths on the same line. I know what you just said about Novak and Malkin having that chemistry. If you want to switch him around with one of those two, by all means. But just the size that the Penguins came into the year with on that second line and how successful it was pretty quickly makes me think that can continue. and really grind forward as a solid line for the Penguins.
Yeah, a dozen games of dominance for the tree line. But
Yes.
let me ask you, is Novak on your fourth line, or are you taking him out of the lineup, or do you consider him part of the kids line and not Koivunen?
Those two could be interchangeable at this point. I think Koivunen, we obviously all want to see Koivunen do so well. I think we're all still waiting for the moment of, okay, he is solidified finally. It's a bit of a slow burn, but I would say those two can be interchangeable. And Novak isn't coming out of the lineup, by the way. Period. He can play in the fourth. He can play in place of Koivunen on the third.
So you're putting him on the kid line.
Yeah, but for in the grand scheme of things, yes.
Tommy and his kids.
Yeah, it'll be pretty interchangeable with those two. They could cycle in and out of the lineup if totally need be.
Okay, so fourth line, if fully healthy, I think Lizotte Dewar is pretty obvious. The question becomes, who do you put with them? And I think if you are fully healthy, I know Noel Acciari is well liked and has a very important role on this team. And Mike Sullivan before Dan Muse had a lot of good things to say about Noel Acciari, but I don't know if I can keep Filip Hallander out of this lineup when he comes back from his blood clot. So I go Filip Hallander, Blake Lizotte, and Connor Dewar, and I know you're taking out a very big penalty killer in Noel Acciari, but you have Lizotte Dewar. McGroarty has killed penalties. Kindel, if I'm not mistaken, has no. I think he's very, very
briefly.
Yeah, they're a little bit. If they get into penalty trouble, I've seen him out there. Yeah. Raquel has killed penalties. Brian Rust has killed penalties. My point is, you have options. You have options. I just think you need Phil Hallander in the lineup. I want to see more of it. I thought he was very good when he was in the bottom six in that opening stretch of games. I thought he held his own when he moved up with Crosby. And then shortly after he moved back down, he had to leave the lineup due to this unfortunate health issue. But I think at full health, I'm finding a place for Filip Hallander. This is a guy that tore up the Swedish Hockey League last year and has proven that he can be a very good depth forward. So I have Hallander, Lizotte, Dewar, and my extra forwards are Kevin Hayes and Noel Acciari. I send Ville Koivunen back to the AHL. He doesn't have room on my 23 right now if the Penguins are fully healthy.
That makes a lot of sense. I do like that. Because again, we're waiting for that moment from Koivunen to really, so we can all say, yeah, that's it. There he is. He's here. He's made it. We're all still waiting for it. So maybe even I would agree with you in making that change for me completely and making Tommy Novak part of that kids line. And then Hayes and Acciari as scratches for Dewar, Lizotte, and Hallander makes a ton of sense as well. It is fun knowing that the Penguins are getting depth scoring through all of this, through all these recent blown leads. You're seeing Acciari score goals. You're seeing Hayes score goals. You're seeing Dewar chip in and Lizotte chip in before his injury. You're seeing everyone contribute. So there's no bad options here for fourth liners, considering the circumstances. And not only are there no bad options, I would still say Bokwe Mama deserves chances every so often.
Yeah, he's on the short list. Him and Koivunen, I think, would be the first two guys I'd call up. And then if it's a center, I'd go Tristan Brazeau.
Yep, Tristan. I would say there's a couple more kids down there. Tristan Brazeau, maybe Avery Hayes is also deserving of a shot. There are no bad answers to what this fourth line could look like or what the bottom six could look like here in Pittsburgh, and that's a phenomenal situation to be in. I think I'm just gonna overall agree with you on that fourth line and say, but also there are options, man. Just shuffle the deck however you want it, and it's gonna turn out at least decent.
All right. Well, let's shift our focus to the blue line. Horwat, I was gonna just say I'm just gonna let you do your defense and then I'll respond with mine. But do you want me to go first after you said, oh boy, that makes me a little nervous.
You go first, because truthfully, the defense is another one that's just a little mind-boggling at the moment. And it's just tough to lay things out. It really is.
So my first pairing is the first pairing. It remains. Parker Wotherspoon, Erik Karlsson has been your best defense pairing throughout the 30 game sample size. Brett Kulak is not coming in to just replace Ryan Graves. He's not. So Brett Kulak will play with Kris Letang, and you will hope that Brett Kulak can be like Brian Dumoulin for Kris Letang, be that steadying presence that helps him get back to his game, because he is so far away from his best game right now that he probably can't even see it. So I put Kulak with Letang and pray that that helps him figure it out. And then again, at full health, I'm putting Ryan Shea on your third pairing, and I'm bringing Harrison Brunick back and giving him an opportunity on the right side. And the way I would distribute the minutes, Wotherspoon Karlsson is your clear number one. They get 23 to 24 minutes, and then 18 each. Kulak, Letang, Shea, Brunick, 18 each. I think that's what you're looking at for that. I mean, obviously it's going to fluctuate because some people are going to play power play, some people are going to play penalty kill, but I would make it bona fide number one pairing, Wotherspoon, Karlsson, and then I would put 2A, 2B between Kulak, Letang, Shea, Brunick, and you can switch them back and forth. And then I have two spots for scratches, Connor Clifton and Ryan Graves. I think it's pretty obvious there.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you on the Wotherspoon Karlsson. There doesn't need to be too much more discussion about that one. That's pretty cut and dry. And I'm with you on Brett Kulak jumping into this lineup and playing with Kris Letang. Like I said way earlier, I want to see what Kulak can do in this lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not bring him into Pittsburgh and then kind of feed him healthy scratches, play him with the wrong people, give him the right shots right away, because he is coming off of a good postseason. Again, I don't know how he started the season in Edmonton, but he's coming off a great postseason and has an opportunity to continue pushing these Penguins back in the right direction. But then as for a third pairing, man, it can go in 80 different directions.
Yeah.
It can go in 80,000 different directions. Ryan Shea could be in there. He could also not. There are the options of Harrison Brunick for sure. Maybe Owen Pickering's been doing well. We got other names in there that can bring their voices back into the lineup. But, man, I think Ryan Shea will stay in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Play with, man, whoever you want to put in there. To enter name. Connor Clifton? Sure.
Yeah. I did kind of look wrong. I did my math wrong. You can only keep one defenseman. If I'm keeping two forwards or two bonus forwards, I would keep Connor Clifton. Because he's shown the ability, or at the very least the willingness, to play both sides, whereas I have not seen Ryan Graves play both sides. But again, Graves might be in a similar situation to Jarry right now. He signed that contract a couple years ago. It's been bad, but he hasn't played poorly this year. Like, the only reason he's coming out of the lineup is they just acquired somebody that goes ahead of him. Like, it's not that he's played to the point where you're like, well, you got to get him out of the lineup. It's that, okay, well, somebody came up above you, and it's just everybody trickled down one spot. And that's why I would not take Ryan Shea out. I'm not saying that Ryan Shea needs to be removed. I'm just saying something needs to change with Kris Letang.
Yeah.
And the quickest path to seeing if you can get a kind of a revitalization is putting Brett Kulak next to him. Somebody who is hey, he's in the lineup, and we see him on the opening graphic, and then you never hear from him again. That's what you want out of Brett Kulak. That's what you've always wanted out of Kris Letang's defense partner. And that's why Brian Dumoulin for years was such a good partner for him. So I think the third pairing is interesting. Mm-hmm. Again, they're by no means is it a given that Harrison Brunick, one, comes back from World Juniors in the first place. They might look at his performance in World Juniors and say, okay, you know what? We've done a lot of things, but we're going to send you to the WHL, and he can play for a fourth different level this season. Or he could come back and get an opportunity, and that's where I think I would put him to start. And let's not forget, Harrison Brunick got off to a really good start when he was next to Caleb Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the plan. Caleb Jones goes down with an injury. A revolving door starts picking up on the left side of Harrison Brunick, and then he starts to struggle. I think if you put him with a guy like Ryan Shea, you might get a similar result to what you saw early in the season with Caleb Jones, which is the best version of Harrison Brunick, which is a version that many people saw as the second best defenseman on the Penguins blue line behind the way Erik Karlsson was playing. So I think that he deserves the first shot once he comes back from World Juniors, and then we'll see from there kind of where you go. But, this team, it's not for lack of talent, and that's the good thing. is you have difficult decisions to make if there aren't any injuries. Now, the issue being it's the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that typically doesn't come into focus. Well, we're halfway through the season and there's no injuries. That doesn't typically happen. So we'll see if it does. Obviously, a lot of Penguins on the mend at the moment. Evgeny Malkin has started skating, which is positive news. We'll have to wait a little bit longer for guys like Philip Hollander and Caleb Jones, who Kyle Dubas mentioned a few weeks ago. That's more of a 2026 question. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'm looking at this lineup right now, and I'm saying if you put the pieces together, they've shown this year that they can all play really well in certain positions. And I think what we both did, both of our lineups, put these players in positions to succeed, and would put the Penguins in position to be one of the top 8 teams in the Eastern Conference and finally play some playoff hockey this spring.
To get it back on track. And the great thing about these lineups that we listed and looking deeper, like I mentioned a couple times, is you have so many options down below. If you need younger names, or if you need different names, you need different options, you need different skaters. You have so many different names down in the AHL that are pushing for spots, that are deserving of spots or opportunities, whether it be from youngsters or veterans. They are doing a phenomenal job of putting their names on high lists and being seen. And that's on purpose, not only by the players, but by the management team coming in and saying, we're not going to build a loser in the AHL or the ECHL for that matter.
Yeah. So we'll see how the Penguins fare here the remainder of the stretch leading up to the Christmas break. But Tuesday's a big game, man. Penguins, Oilers closes out the homestand. Then they go on the road for the dad's trip at Ottawa, at Montreal. We're going to look for some modicum of revenge against those Canadians who came in and waited on the Penguins just to smack them in the mouth at PPG Paints last week. So going to be a fun week, going to be an interesting week to see if the Penguins can bounce back and respond to a weekend that, man, they got booed heavily on Sunday afternoon, and that might continue if they continue to lose in the ways that they are, because it's more frustrating than them just being bad. It's them being good and still finding a way to lose a game. That is something that I think most people would look at and say, yeah, that's way worse than just getting beaten 7-2. If you lost 7-2 every game, then you just look at it and you go, wow, man, they're just not good enough. But they're good enough, and that's what's frustrating.
That sounds like so many Pittsburgh sports over the years. It's hilarious.
Yeah, cut, paste. Yeah, this is a Steelers podcast now. Cut, paste. Yeah, this is a Pirates podcast now. Cut, paste. Well, not the Riverhounds. They're champions. So shout out to the Riverhounds. But
shout out to the Hands.
That's going to do it for this episode of the Tip of the Iceberg. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this one. Remember, if you enjoy this content, first of all, get your head checked, because we're crazy.
We're doing our best.
We're trying here. All right. But nonetheless, if you enjoy it, like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff on Tip of the Iceberg on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcast from. We'll see you guys next time.